Hi, I'm Sandi Genovese, and I have a card today that I just love. This is a dimensional birthday cake. It says, you take the cake literally. Party hardy, because I have hearts in here. And when I open it up, look at the fun dimension in this card. It is so cool. And I made this for a friend who was turning 40. So I actually have 40 candles. I don't know that he ever even counted them. And how many candles you put isn't really so important as the fact that the candles help make it obvious that it's a cake, as well as some of the other, the icing that looks like the detail here. Now, the other thing that gives it dimensionality is this strip, and you can see that it weaves through. We're going to be cutting notches out of all of the mountain folds in this card, and this skinny strip, it weaves through those holes, and it gives it its dimension. And on the outer tip of each one of where the strip is folded is where we'll attach the hearts, so that you have a long area. You have more room on the brown strip that you could add more message, and I even have more message at the end. Happy birthday to the young at heart. So to begin with, let's look at this background folded brown section. What you want to do is, if you go to any of the Michaels stores, they all carry Canson paper in this master sheet size. It's not in the scrapbook section, it's in the art section. And it comes in a master sheet that's 19.5 by 25.5. So the 25.5 length is how I started. I just cut off a piece. This piece is 4.25, the width, and it's 25.5 long. Now, if there isn't a Michaels handy, I should have checked Hobby Lobby and Joann's. I didn't look. My hunch is that they also carry the same paper, but if you want to, you can also piece together sections of 12 by 12 paper so that your end result is 25 inches and a half by 4.25. Then you want to fold it into eighths, and the easiest and quickest way to do that is to fold it in half, and then I'm going to fold it in half on this end, and I'll turn it over and fold it in half on this end. So I've now folded it into fourths, and then fold in half again this way, turn it over and fold this end in. So I now have everything except this last fold. So what I'm going to do is reverse fold the first one, which will allow me now to use this crease as my guide to get the final fold, and do the same thing here. Fold this so that it lines up, and you end up by getting eighths evenly. You could measure. You could actually measure and divide it into eighths that way as well. I don't know why it never even occurred to me, to tell you the truth. So it ends up with your mountain folds being the first and the last fold, and then just accordion pleated from there. In order to weave that strip through, remember we have those notches. So the notches are just in the center basically. So what I did is I took just a Post-it note, and I use this. Once again, you could measure the halfway point. I'm just using a Post-it note. When I have sort of an even amount on this top and this bottom edge, and I've folded the Post-it note, so that's my middle. That's roughly the middle, and close enough that it's going to work for this. So now on this first mountain fold, I'm going to leave it folded. Let me show you so you can see. I'm just going to punch through these top two layers, and I'm leaving my paper here as my guide so I can see that's the middle. And I have to turn it towards me so I can see what I'm doing, but I'm punching right through the mountain, and I'm going to punch out through both layers. And this is a 7/8 inch punch. It could have been an inch. It could be a 3/4 inch. It would work. 7/8 or an inch is better for the width of the strip that we're using today. So now that I have that one, I'm going to lay this down, and with my pencil, I'm going to mark, and I'm drawing hard because this pencil on brown is not going to show very well. I can see it. Hopefully you can see it too. Now I use that as my guide to go ahead and punch the notch in the second layer. And once again, I'm cutting through two layers because it's the mountain fold. I'm going to use that as my mark for the next one. and punch. You can see why I'm not too worried about the exact center, because roughly you just want the middle section to have these notches punched out. So you end up with all of the holes cut and basically in the same rough position. Once you have the holes, now let's look at the strip that's going to weave through those holes. And I created a guide, and then I used the guide to create the final piece. To create the guide, you want to cut a long strip, the same 25.5 inches long by 3/4 inches wide. That's what this strip is. And you're going to fold it in half, and off of one end, I just cut so that it looks finished. Off of this end, I cut the notches so it looks a little bit sort of like a ribbon. Then from this folded edge, I left myself little notes so I wouldn't forget. You come in 3 inches and you're going to place a marker here. This marker, let me show you one. It is a 1/2 inch wide by 1 3/4 inches long. And if you're going to use this as your actual one and not use it as a guide, go ahead now while they're loose like this and fold this in half the long way. You're going to open it back up to glue it, but it'll have a fold that will make the folding easier when it's time to do it. You're going to do 4 of these. So I've got 4. One of them I've already glued down. I came in 3 inches and I glued it. And from the end, before the notches were cut out, I came in 3 inches and I glued it. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it over, and I'm going to use my adhesive in the same spot so that it lines up with the one here. I'm going to position this one so that I'm using the one behind it as my guide, and then come down here and do the same thing. You can see the one behind, if I separate this is my guide. So I'm putting my adhesive so it's going to be in the right spot so that I can now attach this. And as I said, if you're going to use this as your actual woven strip, you want a really strong adhesive and you want to let it set up, because we're going to go back and fold on all these fold lines. I use this as a guide to make a fresh one that's not loose pieces. So I took this, laid it down, and used it to make one that's not glued on. But you can see it lines up exactly with the guides that I just placed. So I'm going to take the one that's a guide. I probably should have done the guide out of a different color, but if you have a really good adhesive, you can use the guide as your actual strip that you're going to weave through. Remember, it was folded in half. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this strip here and line it up so that I can fold here, and it will give me this fold line. The folds may not be going in the correct direction yet, but a fold line is going to be helpful even if I just reverse fold it later. And I'm going to do the same thing, line this up so I have that. And then the other places that I'm going to fold is every one of these strips are going to get folded in half. So I'm going to fold this in half. This is how come I think it's helpful to have a fresh paper that doesn't have loose strips. So that's folded. I'm going to fold this one in half. And once again, I'm going to just use the strip that's already here as a guide to make sure I get it folded pretty straight. So I've gone this way, this way. I'm going to reverse fold this. I'm going to fold this guy in half and lay the rest of the strip down so I can get my fold line straight. So you can see, starting at the end I started at, I now have this, 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 and I have one last fold to do where I fold that last strip in half. And it gives you the accordion strip that's going to fit through the card. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to thread it through. Let's look at the finished one so you can see, and I'm going to thread through the one we just made. The card starts with the mountain folds, as I said, on the ends. The strip folds with the valley folds on the end. So take this and orient it so the valley fold is first. And because it's paper, you're going to be able to slide it through these openings. I'm going to push it through, and then I'm going to try to get my hand out of there. I'm going to fold this in half, enough so I can just push it through, and it's now locked inside. I'm going to do the same thing with this one. I'm going to start with the bottom, and then I'm going to fold this one and push it through. I'm going to take this little guy, push it through, fold it and push it through, and the same thing with this one. So really, this gives you the card. This is perfect for now creating whatever theme you want. The theme is, of course, is going to be based on who you're giving it to and for what occasion. Because this was birthday for me, I put this together first before I look at putting the elements on. This way I can say, all right, this is the front. I want the elements that are going to be sitting here to be facing forward. So if you look here on the table, you can see that I've taken 2 die cuts and layered them together, and then I've added a candle in order to look like an arrow that's piercing the heart, and I've gone ahead and I've put it all the way together, and I'm going to put adhesive on my strip right here so that I can attach the heart to it. And where it fits, I want the tip of the heart to line up with the base of the card. So I'm going to put this in position, and then let me move this. If I do this so that I use my blue paper as a guide, that will be a helpful way for me to say, okay, now that tip is going to sit on the table straight. So I'm going to go ahead and press, and it gives me the first one. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing with the next one, and the same thing, I'll do one more. I actually usually start with the back one, and then the next 2 layers I can just layer right on top. So now I can use the heart that's already there as a guide. So if I lay this down and line up the 2 hearts, so much easier if I started with the back one first, but you'll get it. You can see how you're going to attach the heart so that now, look at what happens when you set it down. They're just going to sit on the table. You're going to do that with the 3rd heart, and you'll have those elements in place. Then it's just a question of making it look like a cake. You could do all kinds of fun things. All I did was I took and I just used my scissors to just freehand cut what looks like the icing that sits so that it looks like it's dripping. And of course, I would go all the way, and I'm just going to keep cutting as many pieces as I want, and then I'm going to use that icing as a guide for me to go ahead and attach candles. And depending on how many or how few candles you want, how big you make the candles, let me go back and show you on the finished one. You can see how I've laid that down, and I've used a white pin to add, and I've just added my candles. And I've done the same exact thing. If you look closely, you can see there's a seam there. Actually, that's a fold line. There are plenty of places where my paper wasn't that long, and I just cut it and then just kept attaching it all the way until I had the whole cake iced, so to speak. I added more detail at the end, and it gives you this really cool dimensional card. I'll bet if you give this to somebody, they're going to keep it on display all year long. Now, we need to talk about the envelope. I forgot to bring the envelope, and I can't remember the dimensions, but when you close it up like this, you can slide this so that it tucks pretty tightly in, and it fits in an envelope this way as well as this way, both directions. If you look at the supply list on the website, I will list the size envelope that works well for this card. But by just simply changing the theme, change the colors, change the embellishments. This one is a congratulations card, and when I open it up, you'll see instead of hearts, I have stars, and my message says, wow, good for you, you did it. All my message, notice how you can put your message all along the woven strip if you want. And I have another, this time I haven't even decided, I just started on this one. So if I open it up, you can see it says hi. I'm not sure exactly what the rest of the message is going to be, except that it's just going to be just a general hi, here's a note to say hello kind of card. Once again, here is the birthday card that we made today. You know, with a card like this, who says you can't have your cake and eat it too?